The crystal mines of Thalaxa hummed with an otherworldly resonance, their sapphire walls pulsing with captured starlight. Deep in the tunnels where few dared to venture, Nira worked alone, her movements efficient and practiced despite the crushing weight of solitude that followed her everywhere. Her elongated frame, nearly 7 feet of corded muscle and pale violet skin, moved through the narrow passages with careful precision, each step calculated to avoid the fragile formations that could shatter at the slightest tremor. At 25 cycles, she had long since accepted her fate as an outcast among her own people, the Thalaxians, where her kind prized delicate beauty and ethereal grace. Nira possessed raw strength and commanding presence that made others uncomfortable. Her silver hair, which should have fallen in silken sheets like her sister's, instead formed thick waves that refused to be tamed. Her hands, large enough to encompass a crystal node entirely, were calloused from years of mining work that others required teams to accomplish. The extraction she was performing now would have taken 3 standard workers an entire shift. For Nira, it was merely another afternoon's labor. She wrapped her fingers round a particularly stubborn crystal formation, feeling the harmonic vibrations that indicated its readiness for harvest. With controlled strength, she twisted it free from its matrix, the crystal singing a pure note as it separated cleanly from the surrounding stone. Still hiding in the depths, I see. The voice startled her, though she didn't show it. Nira turned to find Kesh, one of the colony's junior supervisors, standing at the tunnel entrance. His typical Thalaxian build, slender, graceful, barely reaching her shoulder, emphasized the gulf between them. His expression carried the familiar mixture of distaste and reluctant necessity that most of her people wore when forced to interact with her. The deep veins produce the highest quality crystals, Nira replied evenly, placing the harvested stone in her collection satchel. Someone has to extract them, indeed. Kesh's tone suggested he found the arrangement distasteful, but unavoidable. The council has received another inquiry about your availability. Nira's jaw tightened. And Joran of the Eastern Valleys. He's seen your work records and is impressed by your mining yields. He's willing to overlook your physical irregularities in exchange for a substantial dowry from your family. The words hit like physical blows. Another suitor who saw her as a useful beast of burden rather than a woman. Nira had endured 17 such offers over the past 5 cycles, each one reducing her to her utility value while treating her appearance as something to be tolerated rather than appreciated. What did you tell him? She asked, though she already knew the answer, that you would consider it. Naturally, your family is eager for the arrangement. Your sister Taya's wedding approaches, and the financial assistance would be welcome. Nira nodded slowly, her heart sinking. Taya, beautiful and petite and everything a Thalaxian woman should be, had attracted suitors since she came of age. Her chosen partner, Davin, was kind and gentle. Everything Nira had once dreamed of finding for herself. The wedding would require significant resources, and Nira's unusual mining abilities had always been seen as the family's solution to financial difficulties. I'll need time to consider, she said finally. Kesh's expression suggested he found her hesitation incomprehensible. Time, Nira. You're 25 cycles old. How much longer do you think opportunities like this will present themselves? Joran is willing to overlook your condition. That's more generous than most would be. After he left, Nira remained in the tunnel's depths, surrounded by the comforting hum of the crystals. Her reflection in the polished walls showed her the truth she'd learned to accept. She was too tall, too broad, too strong for her people's definition of femininity. Her violet skin, which should have been smooth and pale, was marked with the small scars of mining work. Her hands, which should have been delicate enough for artistic pursuits, were powerful enough to crush stone. She thought of her family's modest dwelling, where she had to duck through doorways and sit carefully on furniture designed for smaller frames. She remembered countless social gatherings where she stood awkwardly at the edges, her height making her impossible to ignore, while her differences made her equally impossible to accept. Even her younger sister, who loved her dearly, seemed to unconsciously shrink when they stood together, as if Nira's presence somehow diminished her own ethereal beauty. The mining quota for the day was complete, but Nira remained below ground, reluctant to return to the surface where another evening of silent family dinners and carefully averted gazes awaited her. Down here, surrounded by the honest labor that her people valued even as they despised the woman who performed it, she could almost pretend that her strength was a gift rather than a curse. As the crystals sang their ancient songs around her, Nira made her way deeper into the tunnels, where the newest veins promised even richer deposits. Tomorrow, she would give Kesh her answer about Jorn's proposal. Tonight, she would lose herself in the only place where her differences felt like advantages, where the weight of others' expectations couldn't follow her into the blessed darkness of the deep mines. The crystals pulsed with captured starlight, their rhythm matching the lonely beating of her heart. The morning shift began like any other, with Nira descending into the deepest tunnels where the most valuable crystals grew in dangerous proximity to unstable rock formations. The mine's automated systems had detected unusual energy readings. In Sector 7, an area so treacherous that only she was trusted to investigate. As she made her way through the narrow passages, her enhanced hearing picked up something unexpected. Voices, human voices, echoing from the restricted tunnels ahead. Nira paused, confusion rippling through her. Humans rarely visited Thalaxa, and when they did, they certainly didn't venture into the active mining zones. The common tongue reached her ears, heavily accented but clear enough to understand. The resonance patterns are off the charts down here, a male voice was saying. If we can figure out how they're achieving this level of harmonic stability, it could revolutionize our own crystal tech. Careful with those readings, Marcus. Another voice replied. One wrong frequency, and this whole section could come down. Marcus. The name stuck in her mind as she crept closer, her natural stealth allowing her to observe without being detected. 3 humans in environmental suits were clustered around a portable scanner, their equipment casting strange blue light on the tunnel walls. The one called Marcus was tall for a human, though still shorter than herself, with dark hair visible through his helmet's visor and hands that moved with the practiced confidence of someone accustomed to delicate work. The mathematical precision here is incredible, Marcus continued, running his scanner over a cluster of singing crystals. Look at these harmonic intervals. They're naturally occurring, but arranged with the complexity of advanced engineering. Whoever designed this extraction system is a genius. Nira found herself drawn forward despite her better judgment. No one had ever called her work genius before. Most of her people saw her mining techniques as useful but crude, an application of brute force rather than artistry. To hear a stranger, an off-worlder, recognize the careful calculations behind her crystal arrangements sent an unexpected warmth through her chest. A low rumble interrupted her thoughts, followed by the ominous crack of stressed stone. Nira's blood turned cold as she recognized the sound. A cascade failure was beginning, probably triggered by the human scanning equipment, interfering with the crystal's natural frequencies. In seconds, the entire tunnel system could collapse. Move, she shouted, abandoning stealth as she lunged forward. The humans spun toward her voice, their eyes widening at the sight of her towering form emerging from the shadows. But there was no time for explanations. A massive stone formation was already breaking free from the ceiling, heading directly for the cluster of humans. Nira reached them just as the first rocks began to fall. Without thinking, she wrapped her arms around all 3 humans and dove sideways into an alcove she'd carved months earlier during her survey work. The impact drove the breath from her lungs, but she managed to shield them with her body as debris rained down around them. A particularly large stone struck her shoulder, sending lightning through her arm, but she gritted her teeth and held position until the rumbling ceased. In the sudden silence that followed, she became acutely aware of the 3 humans pressed against her, their breathing rapid and shallow with shock. She carefully extricated herself, checking each of them for injuries with the same gentle precision she used when handling delicate crystals. Is anyone hurt? She asked in common, proud that her voice remained steady despite the pain radiating from her shoulder. The one called. Marcus pushed back his helmet, revealing a face weathered by sun and hard work, with intelligent brown eyes that held no trace of the fear or disgust she expected. Instead, he was looking at her with something approaching awe. You saved our lives, he said simply. That reaction time, that strength, incredible. Are you injured? Nira blinked, unused to being asked about her own well-being. I'm fine. The tunnel isn't stable. We need to evacuate immediately. Agreed, Marcus said, then gestured to his companions. This is Elena and Tobias, my survey team. I'm Marcus Reeves, structural engineer with the Terran Colonial Development Corps. And you are? Nira, she replied, then added reluctantly, senior crystal extraction specialist. Marcus's eyes lit up with genuine excitement. You're the one. Who designed this harvesting system? The mathematical precision, the harmonic integration. This is revolutionary work. I've been studying crystal technology for 15 years, and I've never seen anything approaching this level of sophistication. Heat flooded Nira's cheeks, a reaction she hadn't experienced. Since her early youth, no one spoke about her work with such enthusiasm, such respect. Even the mine supervisors who depended on her abilities treated her techniques as a necessary evil. Rather than skilled craftsmanship, we should move, she said, deflecting the praise that felt too good to trust. The structural damage could trigger secondary collapses as they made their way through the tunnel system. Marcus continued to pepper her with technical questions that revealed a deep understanding of crystalline engineering. He wanted to know about her frequency calculations, her matrix stability algorithms, her innovative approach to harmonic extraction. For the first time in her life, Nira found herself engaged in conversation with someone who not only understood her work but genuinely appreciated its complexity. The way you've integrated the biological growth patterns with the extraction timing, Marcus said as they navigated a particularly narrow passage. It's like conducting a symphony. You're not fighting the crystal's natural processes. You're working with them. Exactly. Nira replied, then caught herself. She wasn't used to being understood so completely. Most people think mining is about force, about breaking things apart. But crystals are living systems. You have to listen to them, work with their natural rhythms. That's beautiful, Marcus said, and the sincerity in his voice made her chest tight with unfamiliar emotion. On my world, we have engineers who could learn from your approach. Hell, I could learn from your approach. They emerged into the main tunnel system to find a crowd gathered. Word of the collapse had spread quickly through the mining community. Nira saw familiar faces in the crowd, all wearing expressions of concern mixed with their usual discomfort at her presence. Kesh pushed through the group, his relief at seeing her unharmed quickly replaced by irritation. What were these humans doing in the restricted zones? He demanded. Their equipment could have destabilized the entire eastern wing. It was an accident, Nira said firmly. They're researchers, here to study our extraction methods. The collapse was contained to Sector 7, minimal damage. Marcus stepped forward, his diplomatic training evident in his calm demeanor. I take full responsibility for the incident. We should have coordinated with local personnel before beginning our survey. Ms. Nira's quick thinking and expertise prevented what could have been a catastrophic failure. The formal way he addressed her, the respect in his tone, sent whispers through the gathered crowd. Nira caught sight of her sister Taya at the edge of the group, her expression unreadable as she took in the scene. As the crowd dispersed and the humans were escorted to the surface for medical evaluation, Marcus lingered. For a moment, would you be willing to meet with me tomorrow? He asked quietly. I'd like to learn more about your techniques, officially. I mean, through proper channels this time. Nira nodded, not trusting her voice. As she watched him leave, she realized that for the first time in years, she was looking forward to tomorrow. The next morning brought an unprecedented sight to the mining colony. Nira walking through the upper levels in broad daylight, her head held high as she made her way to the administrative complex. Word had spread quickly about the human engineer, who wanted to meet with her professionally, and curious glances followed her every step. Some carried their usual mixture of discomfort and resignation, but others held something new. A grudging respect, perhaps, or simple curiosity about what an off-world expert might see in their resident oddity. The meeting room had been hastily reconfigured to accommodate her height, with chairs adjusted and a table raised to more comfortable proportions. Marcus was already there when she arrived, along with a woman in Colonial Corps' uniform whom he introduced as Captain Elena Torres, his mission commander. Both humans rose when she entered, a gesture of respect that sent warmth through her chest. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Captain Torres said, her tone professional but warm. "Marcus has been quite vocal about your expertise since yesterday's incident." "I'm curious about your research," Nira replied, settling into the modified chair with careful grace. "Crystal technology is rarely of interest to off-worlders." Marcus activated a holographic display, showing three-dimensional models of various crystal formations. "We're working on establishing sustainable colonies on worlds with extreme environmental challenges. Traditional power systems often fail in these conditions, but crystalline energy matrices like yours could be the solution we've been looking for." As he spoke, Nira found herself drawn into the technical discussion with an enthusiasm she hadn't felt in years. These humans understood the mathematical beauty of crystal harmonics, the delicate balance required to maintain stable energy flows, the artistry involved in coaxing maximum output from living systems. More than that, they valued it. "Your extraction ratios are 3 times higher than anything we've seen in similar geological conditions," Captain Torres noted, studying the efficiency reports. "How do you achieve such precision?" "The crystals respond to environmental factors most people ignore," Nira explained, her confidence growing as she spoke. "Atmospheric pressure, thermal variations, even seismic microtremors, they all affect growth patterns and energy output. You have to read the entire ecosystem, not just the individual formations." Marcus leaned forward, his eyes bright with interest. "Could you show us, demonstrate the process? I'm a hands-on learner, and this level of environmental integration is beyond anything in our textbooks." The request sent a flutter of nervousness through Nira. Showing her work meant revealing the full extent of her differences, her unusual strength, her ability to sense crystal harmonics through direct contact, her intuitive understanding of geological systems that others found unsettling. But the genuine enthusiasm in Marcus's voice was impossible to resist. "I suppose we could visit some of the active formations," she said carefully, "if you're prepared for more challenging conditions than yesterday." An hour later, they were descending into the intermediate levels of the mine, where stable crystal gardens provided a perfect demonstration environment. Nira had changed into her work clothes, practical garments that accommodated her frame without apology, and she noticed that Marcus seemed more at ease with her increased height and obvious strength. Now that he understood their context, "These formations are about 50 years old," she explained as they approached a cluster of resonating crystals, "still young enough to be flexible, but mature enough to provide stable output. Watch the harmonic patterns as I adjust the positioning." She placed her hands on the largest crystal, feeling its vibrational signature through her palms. The sensation was one she'd never been able to adequately describe, part sound, part touch, part instinct. Gently, she began to rotate the formation, listening to the way the frequency shifted as its relationship to the surrounding crystals changed. "There," she said as the harmonic reached perfect resonance. "Can you hear the difference?" Marcus was staring at her hands, his expression fascinated rather than disturbed. "You're doing that by feel, aren't you? No instruments, no frequency analyzers, just direct sensory input." "Most galaxians can sense crystal harmonics to some degree," Nira replied, though she knew her abilities were far beyond the norm. "It's partly why we're so effective at cultivation and extraction. But not like this," said a new voice from behind them. Nira turned to Sijin approaching, her oldest friend and one of the few people who had never treated her differences as a burden. Jin was petite even by Thalaxian standards, her silver hair cropped short, and her expression perpetually amused by the world's absurdities. "Jin," Nira said, a warning note in her voice. She didn't want her friend's well-meaning but blunt honesty to complicate this fragile new professional relationship. "What? I'm just being accurate." Jin addressed the humans directly. "Nira's abilities are unprecedented. She can sense harmonic frequencies at ranges that would require our most sensitive equipment to detect. Her extraction techniques consistently produce yields that teams of specialists can't match. She's probably the most gifted crystal engineer in the sector, and definitely the most underappreciated. Heat flooded Nira's cheeks. Jean, please. No, she's right, Marcus said firmly. What I'm seeing here isn't just skill, it's artistry. The way you read the environmental factors, the intuitive understanding of complex harmonic relationships. This is the kind of expertise that reshapes entire fields of study. Captain Torres was recording everything on her scanner. Her expression, thoughtful. Would you be willing to consult on our colonial development projects? The pay would be substantial, and the work would involve establishing crystal-based power systems on multiple worlds. Nira stared at her, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. You want to hire me as a consultant? We want to hire the best, Marcus said simply, and from what I've seen, that's you. As they continued the demonstration, moving through increasingly complex crystal formations, Nira found herself relaxing in ways she hadn't in years. The humans asked intelligent questions, showed genuine appreciation for her techniques, and never once made her feel like her size or strength were obstacles to overcome. When she had to stretch to reach a high formation, Marcus simply commented on the efficiency of her positioning. When she easily lifted a crystal that would have required mechanical assistance for others, he praised the precision of her handling. I've never worked with anyone who understood the systems this intuitively, Marcus said as they concluded the session. Would you consider continuing this collaboration? I mean, beyond just consultation, as a full partner in the development process. The word partner sent a strange thrill through Nira. She'd never been anyone's partner before. Not in work, not in life, not in any meaningful sense. The possibility felt both terrifying and exhilarating. I'd need to discuss it with my family, she said finally. My commitments here, of course, Captain Torres said. Take all the time you need. We'll be on planet for another 2 weeks completing our initial survey. As they made their way back to the surface, Jean fell into step beside Nira. You know what this means, don't you? She said quietly. What? This is your chance to leave. To go somewhere where your abilities are valued instead of tolerated. Where you can be the person you were meant to be instead of the person this place has made you. Nira looked back at the crystal formations they'd left behind, then ahead to the surface where her complicated life waited. For the first time in years, the future felt like something more than an endless repetition of the present. Maybe, she said softly, maybe it is. The colony's festival of twin moons arrived with its usual mixture of celebration and subtle reminders of everything Nira didn't fit into. Colored lights strung between the crystalline spires cast dancing shadows across the gathering spaces, while couples moved together in the traditional harmony dances that required partners of complementary heights and builds. Nira stood at the edge of the celebration, watching her sister Taya spin gracefully in Davin's arms, their movements perfectly synchronized like two notes finding resonance. You know, on my world, we have a saying. Marcus's voice came from beside her, warm and familiar after 2 weeks of daily collaboration. Dancing is just physics with feeling. Nira turned to find him approaching with 2 cups of the local crystal wine, its pale blue glow matching the festival lights. He'd made an effort to dress for the occasion, trading his work clothes for formal wear that somehow made him look even more solid and reliable. Physics, I understand, she replied, accepting the wine gratefully. It's the feeling part that gets complicated. Marcus followed her gaze to the dancers, then back to her face. Would you like to try? I should warn you, I'm better with crystal harmonics than traditional music, but I'm willing to learn. The invitation sent a flutter of panic through her chest. Marcus, I don't think you understand. I've never been able to dance with anyone. The height difference, the strength disparity. She gestured helplessly at the graceful couples spinning around them. I'm not built for harmony. I'm built for breaking things. Maybe you just haven't found the right partner, he said quietly, extending his hand. Trust me. Against her better judgment, Nira found herself taking his hand, allowing him to lead her toward a quieter section of the festival grounds where the music was softer and the watching eyes fewer. His palm was warm against hers, callous from his own technical work, and he didn't flinch at her strength when she unconsciously tightened her grip. The secret, he said as they began to move together, is not trying to match someone else's rhythm. It's finding your own and inviting them to join you. At first, Nira held herself rigid, terrified of stepping on his feet or moving too forcefully and overwhelming him. But Marcus was surprisingly solid in her arms, grounding her with his steady presence as they found their own interpretation of the music. When she finally relaxed enough to let her natural grace emerge, she discovered that dancing with someone who appreciated her strength rather than feared it was entirely different from her clumsy adolescent attempts. "There," Marcus murmured as they settled into a comfortable rhythm. "See? You're not breaking anything. You're creating something beautiful." The words sent warmth cascading through her chest, and for a moment, Nira allowed herself to imagine what it might be like to always feel this natural, this accepted. The festival lights caught in Marcus's dark hair, and she found herself studying the strong line of his jaw, the intelligent eyes that looked at her with something she was afraid to name. "Nira." The sharp voice cut through the music like a discordant note. Elder Voss, the colony's administrative leader, approached with the measured steps of someone delivering unwelcome news. Behind him walked Joran of the Eastern Valleys, the suitor whose proposal still hung over her like a storm cloud. Marcus's hands tightened protectively on her waist as they stopped dancing, and she drew strength from his solid presence. "Elder Voss," she said formally. "Joran, we need to discuss your future." Elder Voss said without preamble. "Joran has been most patient, but he requires an answer to his proposal. The ceremony could be arranged for next month, after your sister's wedding." Joran stepped forward, his typical Phylaxian build emphasizing the gulf between them. He was handsome in the conventional sense, with the refined features her people prized, but his eyes held the same calculating assessment she'd seen from 16 previous suitors. "I've increased my offer," Joran said, addressing her family rather than her directly. "The dowry arrangement would be most generous, and I'm prepared to overlook certain physical irregularities in exchange for your mining expertise. You would have your own workshop, complete autonomy in your work, provided you fulfill your other duties as a wife." The clinical way he discussed her body, her value, her future, made Nira's skin crawl. She felt Marcus tense beside her, and when she glanced at him, she saw barely controlled anger in his expression. "That's very generous," she said carefully. "But I'm afraid I've received another offer, a professional one." Elder Voss frowned. "Professional offers don't provide the family stability you need, Nira. At your age, with your challenges, this may be your last opportunity for a proper marriage." "What if she doesn't want a proper marriage?" Marcus's voice was quiet, but carried an edge that made both Phylaxians step back. "What if she wants something better?" "The human speaks out of turn," Joran said dismissively. "This is a family matter, not something for off-worlders to—" "I'm not speaking as an off-worlder," Marcus interrupted, his eyes never leaving Nira's face. "I'm speaking as someone who's spent the last 2 weeks working with the most brilliant crystal engineer I've ever met, someone who's watched her solve problems that stump teams of specialists, someone who sees her exactly as she is and thinks she's magnificent." The words hit Nira like a physical force, stealing her breath and making her heart race. The way he was looking at her, with pride, with admiration, with something deeper that made her knees weak, was everything she'd dreamed of and never thought she'd find. "Marcus," she whispered, not caring that they had an audience, "I know this is complicated." He continued, stepping closer. "I know I'm asking you to leave everything familiar, but come with me, Nira. Not as my employee, not as a consultant, as my partner in every sense of the word. We could build something amazing together. Not just crystal systems, but a life where your strength is celebrated, where your brilliance is recognized, where you never have to make yourself smaller for anyone." Elder Voss sputtered with indignation. "This is highly irregular. Nira has responsibilities here, commitments to her family. Her family should want her to be happy," Marcus said firmly, though his eyes remained fixed on Nira's face. "What do you want, Nira? Not what they expect, not what's practical or proper. What do you want?" The question hung in the air like a crystal formation waiting to find its frequency. Nira looked at Joran with his calculating gaze, at Elder Voss with his disapproval, at the festival around them, where she would always be the outsider looking in. Then she looked at Marcus, solid and steady, and seeing her as she'd never been seen before. "I want," she began, then stopped, finding her courage. I want to touch the stars with someone who believes I can reach them. Marcus's smile was brilliant in the festival lights. Then touch them with me later that evening, after the difficult conversations with her family and the formal arrangements with the colonial corps. Nira found herself alone with Marcus on the observation deck of his temporary quarters. The twin moons hung low over Thalax's crystal spires, painting everything in silver light. "Are you sure about this?" she asked quietly, leaving everything behind. Starting over on worlds where nothing is familiar. Marcus moved closer, his hands coming up to frame her face with gentle reverence. "I've never been more sure of anything. The question is, are you sure about me, about us?" Instead of answering with words, Nira bent down and kissed him, pouring all her hopes and fears and desperate longing into the contact. His arms came around her, strong and sure, and for the first time in her life, she felt like she was exactly the right size, exactly the right strength, exactly the right woman for someone who mattered. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. "I love you," he said simply. "All of you, especially the parts you've been taught to hide." "I love you too," she whispered back, the words feeling like a crystal finally finding its perfect harmonic frequency. "Even if I don't quite believe this is real yet, then let me spend the rest of our lives proving it to you," he murmured against her lips. 18 months later, Nira stood in the observation dome of the Heaven's Edge Research Station, watching the aurora-painted sky of their new world shimmer with colors that had no names in any language she knew. The frontier colony stretched below them, a collection of crystalline structures and atmospheric processors that hummed with the energy system Ms. She and Marcus had designed together. Here, 10,000 light-years from Thalaxa, she had found something she'd never dared to dream of, a place where her differences weren't just accepted, but essential. The power grid efficiency is holding steady at 98%, she called to Marcus, who was fine-tuning the harmonic calibrations in their shared laboratory. Their workspace was a testament to their partnership, built to accommodate both their heights, with equipment scaled for her strength and precision instruments that responded to his technical expertise. "Better than projected," Marcus replied, his voice carrying the satisfaction of another successful collaboration. "The colonial administration is already requesting our consultation on 3 more worlds. Apparently, word is spreading about the team that makes impossible environments habitable." Nira smiled, checking the atmospheric readings that had become second nature over the past year. They'd established successful colonies on 4 worlds now, each one presenting unique challenges that required the combination of her intuitive understanding of crystalline systems and his mechanical engineering expertise. On Baron Kepler's Rest, they'd coaxed crystal formations to grow in artificial caverns. On storm-racked Tempest Prime, they'd created resonance networks that turned violent weather into usable energy. Each success had built their reputation, but more importantly, had built their confidence as partners in every sense. "Nira?" A hesitant voice from the laboratory entrance interrupted her thoughts. She turned to find Remy Chen, one of the newest arrivals to Heaven's Edge, hovering uncertainly in the doorway. At 19 standard years, Remy possessed the gangly awkwardness of someone still growing into their frame, with the added complication of mixed heritage that left them fitting neatly into no single category. "Come in, Remy," Nira said warmly, gesturing them into the space. Over the past few months, she'd taken the young engineer under her wing, recognizing something of her younger self in their careful movements and tendency to apologize for taking up space. "I finished the crystal matrix calculations you assigned," Remy said, offering a data pad with hands that trembled slightly. "But I'm not sure they're right. The harmonic frequencies seem too complex for natural formations." Nira reviewed the work, her eyebrows rising with genuine surprise. "These calculations are exceptional, Remy. The harmonic integration patterns here are more sophisticated than anything I was producing at your age, really." Remy's face lit up with an expression Nira recognized, the desperate hunger for validation that came from being different in a world that prized conformity. "Really, Marcus? Come look at this." Marcus emerged from the calibration chamber, wiping his hands on a work cloth. He'd adapted to Heaven's Edge with the same steady competence he brought to everything. His hair now bleached lighter by the alien sun and his skin bearing the healthy tan of someone who spent time outdoors. He studied Remy's work with the same serious attention he gave to all technical problems. "This is graduate-level work," he said finally. "Where did you learn theoretical harmonic manipulation?" I taught myself, mostly," Remy admitted. "The other trainees think I'm weird for spending so much time with the crystal systems. They say it's not normal to hear the frequencies the way I do." Nira and Marcus exchanged a look, the kind of wordless communication that had developed between them over months of close partnership. They'd been watching Remy carefully, recognizing signs of the isolation that came with exceptional abilities. "Remy," Nira said gently, "do you know why Marcus and I work so well together?" The young engineer shook their head, curiosity replacing anxiety. "Because we complement each other perfectly," Marcus explained. "Nira's abilities are extraordinary. She can sense things, understand systems, manipulate crystalline structures in ways that took me years to even comprehend. At first, I thought I was just lucky to work with someone so gifted. But then I realized," Nira continued, "that what made our partnership work wasn't just our individual skills. It was finding someone who saw those skills as assets rather than oddities. Someone who encouraged me to be exactly who I am instead of some smaller version of myself." Remy was listening intently, their postures slowly straightening as the words sank in. "The trainees who think you're weird," Marcus said bluntly, "are idiots. The abilities you're describing, the intuitive understanding of crystal harmonics, that's not weird, that's genius. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to work alongside you." "But what if they're right?" Remy asked quietly. "What if being different means I'll never fit in anywhere?" Nira knelt down to bring herself closer to Remy's eye level, remembering all the times she'd asked herself the same question. "Then you find your own place. You find people who value what makes you unique instead of trying to force you into spaces that were never meant for you. Like here?" Remy asked hopefully. "Like here," Nira confirmed, "or any of the dozen other colonies that are begging for our consultation, or the research stations that specifically request engineers with unusual talents. The galaxy is vast, Remy. There's room for all kinds of brilliance." That evening, as Heaven's Edge's twin moons rose over the horizon, Nira and Marcus walked the perimeter of their settlement. It had become their routine, a chance to check the systems, plan the next day's work, and simply enjoy each other's company under alien stars. Nira no longer hunched her shoulders or tried to minimize her height. Here, walking beside Marcus with their hands linked, she felt perfectly proportioned for her life. "You were good with Remy today," Marcus said as they paused beside one of the atmospheric processors. "Seeing yourself in them, more than I'd like to admit," Nira replied. "I keep thinking about what might have happened if I'd stayed on Thalaxa. If I'd married Joran and spent my life making myself smaller, convincing myself that acceptance was the same as belonging." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "Do you ever regret leaving?" Nira considered the question seriously, looking out over the colony they'd built together. The crystalline power grid sparkled like captured starlight, every formation placed with careful precision to work in harmony with Heaven's Edge's unique atmospheric conditions. Tomorrow, they would begin preliminary work on a new challenge, a world where traditional terraforming had failed 3 times, where the colonial administration was willing to try anything that might make human habitation possible. "No," she said finally. "I regret the years I spent believing I was too much instead of recognizing that I was exactly enough for the right life. For this life. For me," Marcus added softly, turning to face her fully. "You're exactly enough for me." The kiss they shared tasted of alien air and infinite possibilities. When they broke apart, Nira remained close, marveling at how natural it felt to be loved for her strength rather than despite it. "The message from Taya came through today," she said eventually. "She's pregnant. The baby's due during the next festival season." "Congratulations, Aunt Nira," Marcus said with a smile. "Are you planning to visit?" Nira corrected gently. "And yes, I think it's time. One want to introduce my niece or nephew to their uncle. Marcus, show them that there are different ways to build a family, different definitions of home." And if anyone gives you trouble about your choices, Nira straightened to her full height, feeling the confidence that had grown over months of success and partnership. Then they'll learn what happens when you underestimate someone who's stopped apologizing for who she is. As they made their way back toward their dwelling, Nira caught sight of Remy through one of the laboratory windows, bent over crystal formations with the focused intensity of someone discovering their true calling. Tomorrow, she would assign them to one of the advanced projects, give them room to develop their unique talents without the constraints of conventional thinking. The communication array chimed with an incoming priority message, and Marcus checked the display. 3 new colony requests, he announced. 2 atmospheric failures and 1 complete terraforming collapse. They're specifically requesting the Reevesthane engineering team. Nira smiled at the hyphenated name they'd chosen for their professional partnership, a symbol of their equal collaboration in work as in life. Which one sounds most impossible? Definitely Icarus Station. They've had for different engineering teams. Declare the project unsalvageable. Perfect, Nira said with satisfaction. I do my best work when everyone else has given up. Hand in hand beneath heaven's edge's aurora-painted sky, they walked toward their future. 2 souls who had found in each other not just love, but the courage to reach for the impossible. Behind them, the colony hummed with crystalline energy, and ahead of them, the galaxy waited with challenges that would require everything they were. Together, in the distance, Remy's young voice could be heard humming along with the crystal harmonics, learning to trust in their own unique rhythm. And Nira knew that they would be exactly fine, because the universe had room for all kinds of brilliance.